What's going on, guys? I hope everybody is healthy, happy, and grounded. Today, I wanted to share with you something that I have become very passionate about over the last couple of years, and that is men's mental health and men's work, whatever you want to call it. Really identifying why men need an outlet in life when it comes to their emotional well being and really allowing them a safe space to share and to be heard and to be seen and to not be judged. I think for so many of us men, when we're growing up, it feels like we're going to be judged for expressing emotions, showing vulnerability, and asking for help. A lot of my childhood wounds stem from being afraid to speak up and ask for help. I used to shut down. I can think back to times in my childhood when I was having a lot of mental health problems. I remember going to therapy with my family, and the therapists wanted to speak to me, and they advised my parents to allow me to speak to somebody on my own. And I didn't want to do that. I would have rather shut down and keep things to myself. I kept things bottled up because it was embarrassing to think that I may have problems or things that I should be addressing. And again, it comes back to times where I was bullied at school and I didn't want to defend myself. I was too afraid. I had too much fear to stick up for myself. And there was a lot of shame and guilt that I held on to. And I never wanted to be seen. I didn't want to express myself or let people know that I may be struggling. I just figured the older I got, the more I became a man and grew into an adult, it would just go away. And these are things that were brought with me and affected how I handled conflict as I was maturing. And I wonder how many men can relate to this. And it wasn't really until I went back to school as an adult and I started learning more about holistic health. I took a course in my program called The Psychology of Disease. And that's what really propelled me to want to learn more about how we can actually manifest illness or symptoms and ways in which our body is trying to send us a message. And a lot of that can be due to pent up emotions and shame and guilt and fear, anger, resentment. All of these emotions get stored in our body. And if we're not handling them or allowing them to be released or not letting go of them or experiencing them, they will manifest in some form or another. And I relate that back to men's mental health because I think as men, we are far more inclined to want to just handle things on our own. You know, so many of us want to go that lone wolf path of figuring ourselves out and overcoming these hurdles and challenges that we are faced with in our lives. And there is a part of that is really respectable. And I think in a lot of ways, spending that time to yourself and separating yourself from the noise and putting yourself in a place where you can sit with yourself and listen to your body and maybe express things that have been laying dormant. I think as a man, if you're willing to sit in that solitude or to, do the breath work, do the meditation, and just listen and tune into signals that your body has been really trying to tell you for so long. I think that is a really big part of it. But on the flip side of things, I think if we are not really aware of any of that, and we're more likely to distract ourselves, and we're more likely to do things that are actually going to negatively affect us. If we're going to self sabotage and partake in activities that are actually going to really mask the problem and slap a band aid on it, that's where more problems can arise. And if you were to ask me a few years ago about men's groups or men's programs or men's retreats, I would say that sounds really cringe. I wouldn't understand what exactly you were talking about. And a lot of that would have to do with my own insecurities. And, I used to be the type of person that would judge things that I didn't understand. But really, a lot of those things were actually outlets that could probably really help me and that I could benefit from. So in 2021, I actually helped form a men's group. And at the time, I didn't really know that that's what I was doing. This had come after a really difficult time in my life when we were forced into isolation and lockdowns and living by myself. I had gone through a tough time. And actually, when I think about psychology of disease and symptoms, and with me, colitis, I experienced a debilitating flare up when all of that was going on. So not only was I in isolation, but out of nowhere, my body started to reject the situation. I was in a very, very poor state of health. I was having problems digesting my reality. And in turn, my body didn't want to digest what I was putting into it. And this was definitely one of the worst flares that I've ever experienced in my life. It also happened to be that in 2019, before all of this new reality was thrust upon us, I had lost my father to a very quick bout of cancer. He passed only about 3 months after we found out, after his diagnosis was brought to us. And I guess I had thought that I had managed all of the grief, because in the moment when you're going through that and you're basically assisting somebody to the end of their days, there's so many emotions that come up in the moment, but you're also kind of forced to just be on and be present and be in that. And there's so many ebbs and flows with thinking that you're okay with it, going through really dark slumps of feeling everything in the moment, and then going back and forth with that. But I guess with all of that going on, I was still in this mode of go, 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 and getting my mind off of it through action and through just trying to live my day to day life. Not only while it was happening, but after he was gone. I was kind of under the impression that we can get through things by moving on and moving forward and working ourselves out of it. But grief comes in waves, and grief can hit you at times where you didn't know that it was just there waiting for that stillness, that silence, that pause in your life. So when there were lockdowns here in Toronto and I spent so many days by myself, not knowing how to process emotions that were still there waiting for me, the grief hit me like I had never felt before. So combining all of these things together, that's what ultimately resulted in this flare of my disease and symptoms that were so bad that this was really the main this was really the only time in my life where I considered not moving on and not living my life. I was wasting away, and I didn't know who to reach out to. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to climb back out of that because in my immediate future, all I saw was this grim state and everybody hiding from each other and not wanting to be together. And, you know, that was one of the most transformative periods in my life. And that's why for me, this men's work that I've now become accustomed to, and now that I see some really powerful men in the space leading the charge in that front, I realize how important it is. And the message that I want to share with you today, if you're a man who's watching this, you could have a really great circle in your life. But just because you have guys in your life that are good guys and that are there for you when you really need it, it might not necessarily be the type of relationship that you need through really, really hard times in your life. And maybe you are a sensitive person. Maybe you are an emotional being. Maybe you have things that you don't think you can really talk about with your friends or your family. And maybe a lot of the stuff that you do talk about is very surface level. And maybe you've never really gone down that road of really opening up to things that have been weighing on you. And again, there are other modalities for this. There is therapy. There are other outlets in which you can get help. But there's something very unique about men feeling safe in a space filled with other men. And again, when I was younger, I never would have in a million years ever found myself being in a space like that. And I just want to encourage more men out there to understand that it's okay to seek help. It's okay to find resources in which you can have a safe space to speak your truth or things that you've had bottled up inside for so long. And when you are surrounded by high value, powerful men in the space, it really opens your eyes to what we can all bring as men to this world. There's a lot of mixed messages out there right now about what a man should be. And I don't think it's easy to be a man in 2024. I think there's a lot of expectations with social media, with dating apps. I see a lot of videos on women claiming that they will never settle for anything less than a high value man. And a lot of these expectations that are put out there are actually extremely unrealistic. and the things that they're listing might be like 5 or 10% of the men out there that actually have achieved all these things that are on their list. And don't get me wrong, I believe that as men we need to show up powerfully, we need to lead. Women need to feel safe around us. We need to be in our masculine to set that standard. I believe that. But I also believe that it is not a weakness to be vulnerable and to admit that you're not okay. And I think that's why, as men, we need to be there for other men. This is where we're going to uplift one another, push each other out of our comfort zones, and enforce the belief that we are enough. Maybe you're in a relationship and you have a great partner and she is a great listener and you feel like you can be yourself around her and you feel safe. I still think that it would be more beneficial to the relationship for you to find an outlet outside of the relationship, because you can express yourself and find yourself in these other avenues, and you will come back to your relationship even stronger, and you'll be an even better partner because of it. We can show up for each other as men. When I'm going through a difficult period in my life, I still have this tendency to want to shut down and to separate myself from other people until I get my shit together. And part of that is okay. But if I don't talk about it and I continue to keep it inside, it's going to take me a lot longer to work through it. A great example of this is, that men's group that I helped form in 2021. There's 4 of us that we're still going strong. I've formed a connection, a brotherhood with these guys that I've never experienced in my life. We are there for each other in so many ways. And just a couple of weeks ago, I didn't show up to one of the calls because I was going through a really hard time and I was super depressed, and I didn't want to bring down the call with my problems, and I didn't want to play into that victim mindset. So the guys checked in on me the next day, and I sent them a voice note basically explaining what I was going through. I was coming at it from a better state of mind, but I was open and I was honest, and I explained why I didn't make it to the call. And all they did was uplift me and support the fact that I was justified to be feeling this way. It was okay for me to be feeling like this, and that we all go through it, and that I should be kind to myself in this time because it's temporary. And the fact that I was struggling actually allowed me to grow, and I actually became stronger because of it. For them to reinforce the fact that I wasn't alone, we all go through it. I shouldn't hide. I should be honest with them and express to them how I'm feeling and understand that it's okay. It allowed me to gain a sense of calm and clarity. And I was able to move on from it a lot quicker than I might have if I just continued to go it on my own. So if you're a man and you feel alone, you feel helpless, maybe you are struggling with your health, like Crohn's colitis or autoimmune illness or depression, any of these things, please know that there are so many of us going through it, and we can work through it together. A lot of times we go on social media and everybody around us, they're painting this picture that their lives are so great, and we only see all the amazing things that they're doing, but we don't see the struggle that they're going through, and we don't see the challenges that they're facing. And I think the more that we can bring to light, the more that we can be open and honest and allow people to understand that it's not always that great. We have real shit that we need to get through. And again, I think as men, don't feel like you need to go on your own. There are people out there that want to hear your story. There's guys out there that want to have your back and want you to feel your very best and for you to know that it's okay to be going through this. It's temporary. You can and will get through it. And you're not weak for being honest and showing vulnerability and letting other people know that you need help. So if you ever do need help, please reach out. And if you need any advice on tools that you can use, or if you want to know more about different outlets or avenues that you can go down, any questions about men's groups or retreats or really powerful people in the space that have communities that they've formed based on everything that I've talked about today, let me know. I have a ton of resources and I want to continue to talk about this and allow everybody to know that this is normal. We're all deserving of health, happiness, help, security. We are enough, but sometimes we need a little bit of help. I've got your back. Reach out to me anytime. And until then, know that no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. I love you guys. Talk to you soon.